until after Marion County has certified their referendum. I'm happy to report that we're having really good progress in Marion County, and it is going to probably be assigned to committee in their city county council next week. We have 12 co-signers on the ordinance for the referendum. You only need 16 for it to pass. So it's looking pretty positive. We think that's going to be certified either April 11th or May 9th, depending on how their agenda ends up working. Once they've made that decision, other counties that are part of the legislation can go forward with their own referendum, should they so choose. Referendums can only be in general election years, so we can only have them in 2016, 2018, 2020. I think the odds are that it's going to just be Marion County in 2016, but everybody's waiting to decide what they'd like to do after they see if Marion County certifies a referendum. But my gut is you're going to see this in Hamilton County in 2018. Just so you know, there is a provision in the law that townships, if a county chooses not to do a referendum, township boards can choose to do a referendum. And the reason we're briefing you on this is it's possible in 2018 if Hamilton County said we don't want a referendum, but Carmel would like the red line extended into Carmel, your township board would have that as an option. It's also very useful down south in Greenwood for Pleasant Township. They could take that as an option so that the red line gets extended to Greenwood. So that's kind of a brief overview of the legislation. Any questions on that? I'm so lucky because Anne's here. She knows it way better than I do. One piece I wanted to highlight is in the legislation, only certain counties are allowed to be part of this process. So there's only 6 counties that can belong. It is not all of the collar counties. So it's Delaware, Hamilton, Hancock, Johnson, Madison, and Marion. So that's just an interesting quirk of the law. Okay.
Hey, Cindy, I got a question on why was it that this is really kind of funny or unique or whatever. Normally townships are always sitting in the back row, you know, we're kind of out of, but yet on this they're asking townships to make this. Why is that?
Well, I think part of it was flexibility. So we do have certain collar counties, right, where, like Greenwood's a great example. Johnson County is probably not as engaged in wanting transit for the whole county, but in Pleasant Township, it's a big deal. They already have interlocal agreements with Indigo providing services there. So having this township option gives an area some options, right? It just gives you some flexibility. Now, townships cannot take advantage of that until the county says, we don't want to deal with it. So the county has to reject the desire to certify a referendum.
And that's when you go to township.
And then you can do townships if the townships want.
Okay.
And there's a lot of energy along the red line. So Washington Township has had a briefing, and they're keeping their eyes open on this because they would like that red line to get up to Grand Park.
Oh, that's a good idea. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, it'll go from Grand Park all the way down to Greenwood when it's fully built. So probably the most energy on something new and exciting is the red line. Okay, well then we're going to go ahead to the handout that you got in advance. I'm not particularly fond of reading to you what you could already read. So I'm just going to highlight a couple things, but if you had any questions about it. After that legislation was passed, the Hamilton County Transit Forum got started at the suggestion of Commissioner Christine Altman, along with Mayor John Ditzler, who provided all the staffing for it. We brought a lot of people together. There was 55 individuals that came together to start analyzing this. The companies and organizations they represented are on your executive summary. They broke into 3 teams, assessing governance, route design, and how do we inform the community and get our community more aware of the value proposition of transit. They worked for about a year and a half. His team did a lot of work. They met weekly for a while. And the big question was, do we need transit in Hamilton County? And if we got that money, is it enough to do anything meaningful in a county as wide and spread out as ours is? And the forum really did come to a conclusion that yes, we need it. And the reason we need it tends to really center around economic growth, competitiveness, and job access. And because of that, the plan is really designed to link people to jobs. That's its biggest goal. Also, we did a lot of research into competitor cities. Is Tim still here? No. You know, we talked a lot with Tim Munger, like who are the cities that when you bring in site selectors, do we compete against? And we went and then looked at what those competitor cities are doing. Every single competitor city invests in transit. We're the only ones that don't.
Who do you consider competitor cities?
Well, we, I think, ended up looking at like 8, but I've got 3 great examples. Denver is a big one. And they did a $1 billion, they invested $340 million in a particular, just a single transit center. And their return on that in private investment was $1 billion.
And is that the light rail you're talking about out there?
That theirs is a light, well, they actually have a combined system. So they've got light rail, they've got a little bit of BRT, and they've got local bus.
And they need it because the traffic out there is horrendous.
Yeah, it is.
Even with this addition.
And we looked at Charlotte, Salt Lake. I mean, every city we looked at is investing pretty heavily in transit. A lot of it has to do because of population demands, right? So our 2 biggest population sectors are seniors and millennials. We have a lot of national evidence that once you hit 65, you actually want more transit because you're not comfortable driving in congestion, and you're not feeling like it's safe. Our millennials don't drive. I mean, it's just incredible how much they're not wanting to drive. There is anecdotal evidence that people are moving to Hamilton County for jobs just assuming we have transit. And then they're arriving at, I've heard of a fire station and a different trustee's office. Was it you two? Somebody arrived in Noblesville trustee saying, hey, I got this job, but how do I get around? They just assumed we had it. So that's one of the big issues. Yeah.
Does your plan at all include the rail bed from Fishers to the state fairgrounds?
Oh, thank you for taking the hardest question and throwing that right out there. So the Hamilton County Transit Forum did their work. They're reconvening in a new structure because the research section is done. The new team is only about 20 people. Commissioner Altman, Mayor Cook, Mike will be on that. There's representatives from the municipalities and businesses. And the biggest thorn they've got to deal with is the green line, which is what that line is called.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
The green line has some real challenges with it. It's at a very expensive line because there's no way we can use the existing rail in any kind of system. That rail will not work for modern trains. So it all has to come up. There's a lot of environment, there's a lot of rebuilding some beds and bridges and fun stuff like that. The economic analysis is it's $100 million more to have that light rail than it is to have it as a bus rapid transit line. And so this team, along with working with electeds, is going to have to figure out what they want to do with that line. But it's certainly in the plan. And until we get that line figured out, we don't have solid budget numbers because there's such a huge variety of ways you can take that line.
One last question on that.
That's what I'm here for.
So is it possible, now I realize that I don't even know who owns it right now, if it's still owned by CSX or whomever, but is it possible that instead of a rail along there, they could be torn up and changed into a bus only?
Yes, that is the plan that's probably the most likely to happen.
Okay, all right. Well,
It's currently owned by the Port Authority. No, what's it called?
It is owned by Fishers, Noblesville, and Hamilton County.
Okay. This is why Ann's here.
Could you say that into the microphone?
Yes, so it is owned by the City of Fishers, Noblesville, and Hamilton County. And the way, correct me if I'm wrong, but the way that it's laid out right now, they have the authority to keep it as a rail line. Okay. Is that fair? Correct. Okay. Well, on your executive summary, we laid out the reasons of why we think this is important. I want to really highlight that the team spent a lot of time trying to figure out customer service. And there's 2 different ways of models. One's called ridership and one's called coverage. Coverage means you're going to try to cover the entire county, whatever land you've got, you're going to cover it all. The other one is, hey, where are the most riders? And how do we connect the most riders to centers of jobs, healthcare, entertainment, those kinds of things, tourism. The team decided on an 80% ridership, 20% coverage. So we really wanted to emphasize high ridership in dense areas. And can you show them the heat map maybe now? Would that work? Yeah, that. This is showing you those red and green lines, those lines we were just talking about. Mike has a really great heat map that shows where people work in Hamilton County, and those lines run right through those corridors. So what this means, though, is none of the map shows bus lines in the northern part of the county because there's just not enough density. And so our plan allows for an extra $1 million of revenue that has been generated through income tax to go to Janus's. So the Hamilton County Express has more capacity to provide service in the northern part of the county. So it's important, we want people to know we thought about the whole county, we're just giving different ways of providing that service. Okay, now I'm going to ask you to flip to the very back before we look at maps. So I wanted to explain what BRT is. It's called Bus Rapid Transit. And basically it's light rail on wheels. And there's a new report that I haven't had a chance to read yet that just came out of a Washington think tank that's looking at BRT around the country, and they're finding it incredibly economically efficient. So it's a good thing. What BRTs, though, they're a little different than a normal bus. So they have stations that will have covered canopy for the whole station. They're about anywhere from a half a mile to a third mile apart, so you're not having stops on every block. They are slightly elevated so that you have level boarding onto the bus because that's much faster. And wheelchairs can go on faster, baby strollers, all of that gets on much faster. They will have racks for bikes. So people can take their bike, get off, ride their bike where they need to ride it to. Fares are done through a kiosk, so it's all automated. The buses have inspectors, and all the national data shows that when you have inspectors and people know they're inspectors, your enforcement on buying a ticket is the same level as if you had to buy a ticket before you entered into the bus. So it is designed to be very, very fast, and they're designed to run every 10 minutes to 15 minutes so that you can move a lot of people. They have the advantage if you find a line that starts getting really, really popular, you just add more buses. And so that gives you some flexibility with that. You have Wi-Fi, you have fun stuff like that. Do you guys have any questions about BRT? Because not all these lines are BRT. There's only, in Hamilton, there'll only be 2 lines that are BRT.
Red line, though, is, right?
The red line is,
Right.
and the green line is.
What I saw on your participants, so just glancing through, you've got HNTB, what is Structure Point and CDM Smith doing right now? They just won a design contract in the fall, so what is it that they're doing?
For the red line?
Uh-huh.
So they're part of the phase 1 of the red line, and they're doing this, the environmental on it. There's a couple more studies left to be finished. There's some studies they're just starting on phase 2 of the red line, which is up in our area too. So why don't we just go to the red line map, which is in the middle, and then we'll do the big county map last. Okay, now here's where Mike gets to help me answer questions. So the red line is kind of the starship right now, and the reason for that is it's designed to be built in 3 phases. Phase 1 is what you're reading about in the paper right now, and it's basically going from 66th Street down to Hannah Avenue. So it's University of Indianapolis up through Broad Ripple. So it's kind of the middle of this map. Phase 1 is being able to be built without referendum dollars because the federal government has granted them a $75 million small starts grant, which I always find funny that it's called small starts. But anyway, and they've gotten matching grants, and they're pretty confident that that all can be built without any referendum dollars. If everything goes well, they'll start building that at the end of next year, and it will be up and running by 2019. So that's phase 1. Phase 2 is the northern part, which would get through to Grand Park. You will notice on phase 2 and phase 3, which is the southern component, they have stopped. They're still in Marion County and they've got a gap before they reach another county. They will be building that gap. So Marion County is going to pay to have that gap built all the way to the border, and then we pick up from the border. Okay? So this particular route for these 3 counties hits the major employment corridor by far for that entire region. It hits all of our major universities that are within this region, and I believe it hits 3 health centers. So this is a very high capacity line that will have a huge payoff for our region. Now, questions?
Is there designated signaling? I mean, do they get to blow through red
Yes.
lights?
It is all coordinated.
So in theory, the bus could beat a vehicle.
Yes, the bus should beat a vehicle. It may not beat it by a ton because it does have stops
Right.
every bit. But you also can do work on the bus and stuff like that, and you can go down and party and come home and not drive.
Uber gets expensive.
Yeah.
Bite your tongue. My daughter works for Uber.
What's the time? You said the red line every 10 minutes. How late do they, or is that 24/7?
So in the Marion County, so a lot of that Hamilton County specific plan is not done yet. But in Marion County, it will be, the new plan system will be running 20 hours a day, 7 days a week, although on Sunday, I think it's running 16 hours. Basically, it's not running from 4 in the morning until from 2 in the morning to 4 in the morning or something like that. That's not 20 hours, whatever. It doesn't run in the very, very early morning.
Is the referendum, so essentially if you make $100,000 a year, you're coming off of $250. Is that my math correct there?
Yeah, I mean, for the median Hamilton County resident, their bill would be $271 a month, or a year.
So is that an ongoing tax or is this a one-time?
It is an ongoing tax.
Okay.
What is, and I've read the articles and I've seen the billboards. I have not talked to anybody that lives in, let's say, South Broad Ripple, for example. A lot of opposition, obviously. Is it because of what is likely to happen to widening college? Is college going to have to be widened in Broad Ripple?
So,
Not
yeah,
necessarily.
and the interesting thing is, they have 2 different petitions going in Broad Ripple. The pro has over 400 signatures on it, the cons have about 150. So, they're vocal, but they actually are in the minority. Part of it's just change. People don't want to deal with change, right? And that's normal because it's going to change some of their patterns. They will lose about 10% of their parking spaces, which is a large part of their challenge with it.
Mm-hmm.
But all of the studies show that there are alternatives to all of that.
Well,
It's just
I'm
having
not
to seek
overly
them.
sensitive to losing the parking spaces because the parking garage they just built never has any cars in it.
Right.
But you said it didn't have to be widened. My last project I did was that bridge in front of the blind school. And I mean, I know that we built that bridge for not a bus line, not a dedicated line. So like, how do you get around some of these structures that are constricting?
So there really isn't dedicated lines north of Phase 1. So until you get back into Carmel and then on Penn, they'll reintroduce dedicated lines.
Okay.
But it's really, at the intersections where a lot of the improvements are, and it's, say in that 54th Street area, 38th Street, it's a reallocation of the lanes, which is where something had to give, and the parking is what ends up losing out.
Mm-hmm.
It's the station platform. which will be in the median. There'll be a median platform.
Is that where all the platforms are gonna be, or are you gonna have to take some land on the side to have the bus?
So my understanding, and part of the environmental is finalizing all that. All the improvements will be located within the existing rights-of-way. So there's enough land there to do it, and that's partly how they keep the cost of the project.
On all these stops?
Yeah.
Do you have any
Yeah.
opposition to the Green Lane project, which is for the bicyclists? Are they gonna lose their bike lane?
In Broad Ripple?
We're going all the way down
Going down.
College, and because they just, especially down here where,
They just got painted.
yeah, where it makes the turn on 38th and then hits Meridian, right at 18th,
Right.
there were Green Lane dollars put there. And down Capitol. I was just just curious.
So they're doing hearings right now on the walkways and bikeway projects, and I know that that's looking into it, but I don't know the specifics. If
I
you're,
just didn't know if you'd heard anybody.
I don't know, but I can find out. So, okay. The other thing is in Broad Ripple, they've got one dedicated line for the bus north and south in particular sections that are more narrow. And what happens is they have a way that one can stay parked at an intersection, and then the other one goes, and then they pass, and then they're back in the same lane. So it's a very sophisticated system. Did I describe that well? Anything more on Red Line, and then we'll talk about the county vision plan.
Red line goes within probably a block to where my business is.
For all these plans in Marion and Hamilton, the goal is for them to not go over the referendum dollars for both capital costs and operating costs. One of the things that needs to be done in Hamilton County is resolve the green line approach, because right now our vision map is not paid for completely. It's not completely funded on referendum dollars. And that is not a scenario we want. But until we make some decisions on the green line, the vision plan for Hamilton County is not budget constrained. So we wanted to flag that for you.
What do you say to people, and I'll never forget this, chairman of Ways and Means in the 90s, a guy named Sam Turpin, once made a quip. I mean, this is before this was even conceptualized. Was that in the history of mankind, there has been one mass transit system that has had cost recovery, and it was the interlocal in Indianapolis, and we did away with it.
Yeah.
Or the interurban, excuse me.
Yeah, and it's great fun to read all of the stuff about the interurban right in this building, right? So that's kind of cool. My answer generally is we view transportation and mobility as part of our community good. And that's why we build roads, and that's why we worry about sidewalks and bike lanes. We view all of that as a community good. And what all of this is saying is we need to broaden our understanding of mobility options. So there is not a single mass transit system in the world that is funded strictly on the fare box. It just doesn't happen. And that's not to say they aren't wildly successful. You know, most of the time when we go talk to people, they've all been on a transit system in some other city, and they loved it. And so we just view this as part of a community good and part of smart way of thinking about mobility. Obviously, we like roads. We like asphalt. You can't run buses, on the air. So it's a question of how are we going to use those roads smarter and get more density on those roads, get more people moving faster on less gas emissions, for example. The BRTs are all electric. We will be the first community in the country that has an all-electric BRT fleet. So we are not going to be having any CO2 emissions. So basically, the answer is it's a community good, and we want to be smart, and transit's part of a smart solution.
I've got a question.
Yeah.
What kind of security are you building into this? And I have a reason for asking. I was in another city at a meeting. In fact, it was in Dallas, and they had a system, honest to gosh, you get to a certain hour of the night, and the people that have no place to go come in and ride the system up and down, and they bring their shopping carts. I've never seen anything like it, and I'd hate to see that happen here. I mean, they just literally live on
Yeah.
the transportation at night.
So as with a lot of these issues, right, it's a community. I mean, tonight's a great example. All the money you've given away to the community that creates community solutions. So you have to work with transit with all of your social service agencies also. Luckily, we have people who are robustly trying to deal with the homeless problem, including the check you gave tonight for Interfaith Hospitality Network, right? They're trying to bring in their model up here for homeless families. The work that's being done with Wheeler and some of the other agencies in Indianapolis is making a difference, including new apartments. I don't know if you read in the paper that have been built for the homeless population. So it isn't particularly a transit solution, but it's also, you know, working with those agencies. These stations, now not all bus stops, but stations on the BRTs will have cameras, and they all will have random supervisors that ride them, who will be checking tickets and dealing with those kinds of issues. The operations budget also includes money to make sure that trash is removed daily and things are kept clean. You will have a graffiti problem in certain sections, but operations will make sure that that gets cleaned up quickly. Okay, well, let's look at the vision map for Hamilton County. So one of the things I wanted to point out is these maps. By the way, I brought with me Marion County maps if you care. So if you'd like to see, it's a lot more lines than we're doing up here. Our team really decided that what mattered to us was frequency. We felt that people who lived in Hamilton County wanted a lot of frequency. And on this map, if it's red, that means a bus will come every 15 minutes. If you look down in Marion County, you're going to see some sort of light blue lines. That means that they are coming every 30 minutes. And the green lines means you get to wait 60 minutes before another bus comes. So the forum in Hamilton County made the commitment to having lines that came every 15 minutes. Now that's a trade-off. So you can't do as many lines if you're trying to bring them that often. This is a vision map. It will take 10 years to implement. So from whatever point we start approving a referendum and dollars start flowing, it's 10 years before you see this fully implemented. The forum itself and electeds need to have a conversation about that green line and adjust the map, and then we need to have community input on this. While we had 55 people helping design it, we haven't really shopped it to the community yet and said, hey, what do you think, what do you feel, and all of that good stuff. These lines are designed to connect people to those two BRTs, be where our major job centers are. We worked really, Mike's group worked really hard to make sure that there is a bus getting to every healthcare center. So that's really important too. And I would like to point out, Prime Life, Sandy was one of our forum members. She was at every meeting helping us design this, as was Janus. So we had a lot of local input into figuring this all out. But a lot of concern about how do we help our vulnerable populations. I'm proud to report this map reaches 47% of Hamilton County residents living in poverty. They will be within walking distance of some route. It links 77% of employees in Hamilton County will be within walking distance. And those statistics, the demographics are on your map. So there was a lot of thought put into this, but it will probably change as we go forward, but it's the basis. And we don't think it'll change a whole lot, but we think there will probably be some adjustments made.
Revenue hours, does that mean operating hours?
It is a combination of operating hours with ridership. So how many riders we anticipate being on it for the time that the bus is actually being able to take fares in.
Over a yearly period or monthly or?
It's yearly.
Yearly, okay.
Yeah. I better double check that. You're the first one to ask me. I'm pretty sure it's yearly, but I'll double check. If I'm wrong, I'll let you know.
Okay, fair enough.
So our goal tonight was just to make sure you guys had information, that your questions could be answered, because we know this isn't gonna go away. We'll probably be back later for some more stuff. And we wanted to give you time to think and process and ask whatever you want. I'll make sure I give you my business cards, so you can, if something pops up, you can always call me. We are gonna be doing, there's a lot of focus in Marion County right now, because no one else can have it unless Marion County is successful. So strategically, everybody's really focused on making Marion County a success right now. We're gonna keep refining this. It takes time to vet this through the community and electeds, so I'm guessing pretty much this year is gonna be doing that. But our hope is that we have a robust system. Tonight, you had the opportunity to give money out to social service agencies. The reason I'm in this is in working with social service agencies, the one barrier they always come up is transportation. The biggest barrier they have to getting people to mental health appointments, to helping people get a job, is they don't have a car. And without a car, you don't get access in Hamilton County. So that's why I'm in it, that's why a lot of people are in it, and we're pretty excited about what's happening. So if you had any other questions?
We will have them, I'm sure, at
Yeah.
some point.
I want to thank my friends that stayed to help me in case you asked
Yes.
something I didn't know the answer. So thanks to Ann and Mike, I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Really cool.
Thank you again, Cindy. Really, it was very enlightening, and we look forward to
Really was.
more information to come. Thank you.
You think you've got Marion County, a map of Marion
Yes, I
County?
do.
That might be nice to have, just,
While they're doing that, are there any financial questions from the board?
I have none.
I don't actually have, thank you, a financial question as much as I have, in a way it is, of going through this mammoth amount of minutes that we generated from our big meeting. We talked about getting together with the city, to work on not having the same problem that we had this last year, and I wondered if we can go forward with that.
We're not giving them the money for the COVID money.
oh,
Right, it has
the
to do
COIT
with it,
money?
right, the COA.
I've been working on that because
Well, you
I
just met with the mayor.
yes, and I want to get it done within the next 2 months. They are wanting some of that COIT money, I will tell you up front right now, okay? And that's just meeting with the mayor. The mayor told me to meet with Coonrod, so I had lunch with Coonrod. And I told him, I said, well, I will tell you something, and you probably need to be at our meeting when we look at this contract, or the month before, to talk to the board about it, to give your insight of why you think they should give you some of the COIT, okay? And in the meantime, when we're talking about that, this COIT, we need to set a time when we're done with it, period. Whether it's this year or in 5 years or whatever, because this
I thought we were
COIT,
done with it
he
last
was
year.
explaining that this COIT can carry out and carry out and carry out. And I said, well, if that's the case, then you definitely need to talk to the board, because I cannot give you the approval to keep taking COIT money. So I think that if anything, he's going to be at either March or the April meeting, because I want to get this fire contract done as soon as possible.
He being Mr. Coonrod?
Coonrod.
Okay.
And we'll have Angie here and of course, and Brian, and so if we can just get this stuff ironed out with them here, then, I mean, that way, we say, no, we're not doing it this year, then we need to say it that way. But,
I thought we
but
did.
it needs to
Wasn't
come
part
from you
of
guys.
what
But-
we were
It
gonna
was very
do
clear.
was to educate the new council
Well,
too?
what we talked about was, let's get together right after the first of the year
Yeah.
to get this ironed out, okay? So I will make sure like I say, I told him March or April, I didn't know at the time. And really, we've got time in both of those months to have a long discussion over that if we need to. But they, actually, Angie came up with like 766,000, that's COIT, that was from Southwest Clay. However, they backed away from that, and I said, oh, no, that cannot happen. And so now they were talking about 200, and then it's the 300,000. I said, I'll tell you what, we need to have a meeting with the board. So I will bring him at either the March or April meeting. I will have him here to talk to you folks about it. Let's get this thing ironed out so we don't carry on into June, July, and August. I want to get it done.
Or December 29th, like we did this year.
Well, and that was one of the things the mayor told me. He says, well, the thing last year,
They'd already
we've been
budgeted.
doing contracts for a long time. But he says last year, it was a kind of, they didn't realize about the COA until it's the last minute. And I'll take the hit for that.
Well,
okay?
I understand.
But-
I have some sympathy for the mayor, only because obviously the city was in a bit of a pinch at the end of the year. They had already committed that money, and we had not had discussion. That is not the case this year.
We're out in front of this. We're out in front of this as far as we can be.
Well, and that's why I say, and I told Kurt, if the mayor wants to come, he's welcome to show up. I don't care. But we're going to have this done by the end of April. We're going to know what it is because I'm getting ready to work on the fire contract as far as our portion of the actual year-to-year amount through our AV, and it's 3%. It's actually 2.94%, but 3%. I normally will take it up to 3%, and that part's okay. And also, I did mention about the firefighters' physicals, and the mayor and everybody's fine with that. And I mentioned, Matt, what you had told me about, then he needs to take care of the police officers, okay?
Oh, yeah.
And and so he says, well, let me take care of that. I said, okay, but I said, we're willing to take it 60, 80,000, whatever it is, to pay for the physicals for these firefighters.
We're willing, my opinion, we're willing to match. I'd like to see him put some money up.
So-
But, and I know nobody wants to hear this, not the fire department, not the construction guys, but if it comes down to, we give them money, or we put the final finishings on the inside of the training center, they can have one or the other.
I brought that up too. I said, we're giving $500,000 this year for the construction of that maintenance and training facility, cash. And I said, you guys turn around and still want money? I don't understand that. I mean, we spent $425,000 in cash last year, and now we're spending another $500,000. Almost $1 million we're spending for this. So there's got to be some give and take here. And so anyway, the bottom line is you guys need to make the decision. I will invite him, and then you can hear what he's got to say. And if the mayor wants to show up, that's fine too. And then you guys tell me which way you want to go. Okay, let's get it done.
I was under the impression our decision had been made. So, and now it's just a matter of, them convincing us to be, I don't know any other word, but generous with some money, but they're not getting that full amount.
Okay, well, and whatever, we need to come at a stopping point. When is the last time you're going to get a dime out of this COA? Is it this year, next year?
I thought that was crystal clear.
No, but I think you guys need to hear Kirk Coonrod's and Angie's both of their sides. I think they need to be here to tell you.
I've heard Angie's side. All I need Kirk Coonrod to do is provide a piece of paper that says we agreed to do this. And I know that piece of paper doesn't exist.
No, it's not. You're right. There's not any.
Why not?
Huh? Because, we've never put it in the contract. It's just one of those things that when Southwest Clay went into the city, I thought we would stop in 2015. Well, I guess the way the COA works, it was kind of like property tax. It's 2 years after you stop, okay? Well, that's not true after I heard yesterday from Kurt. It would drop, but it doesn't go away. And he says, but there's a point where we need to just stop it too.
Kirk
And I said,
Coonrod
well,
is
you need to
not
talk
an
to the
elected
board.
official. He's an employee of the city of Carmel. And I'm less interested in what he has to say as I am how we, the board and the council, are going to come to an agreement on this. I thought it was crystal clear that last payment we gave him was the last payment. I thought I didn't know there was a misunderstanding. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Well,
No, that was what we talked about.
It's not a misunderstanding. He's doing the mayor's bidding, and he's in here trying to wheedle his way back into
Finesse us
this
into
and get
going,
more money.
yeah.
And the mayor,
He's doing what he's being paid to do.
and the mayor wants him to take care of it.
Of course he
So-
does. I mean,
so if
this
that's
is-
the case, then when we, like I
We're
said,
idiots if we allow this to go on much longer.
Otherwise, pack the
Period.
trucks up and.
That's right.
and
We're gonna
put
be
'em
doing
in
this
your
forever.
backyard.
Well, see, the bottom line on something like this, since you guys are the financial people, you guys make that decision, not
I
me.
thought we already had.
We
you
did.
know? But
It's not up to Kirk
It's a decision.
Coonrod
I
to
was
tell us what
told
we
to
made.
get this going the first of the year, which I got it
Yes, you
moving
did.
this first of the year.
Fair enough.
Okay, now the mayor says, no, you talk to Kirk Coonrod. I met with Kirk Coonrod, and Coonrod comes back with this, but if the problem here too is obviously, no, Kirk, you're getting nothing, and then something gets out that Doug says, no, you're getting nothing, and you guys disagree with me, then why didn't you bring it to the board? I'm bringing it to the board, okay?
Right.
That's why what I'm saying.
They're not getting nothing, they got $1
And
million
it's gotta
in
be-
cash.
Huh?
They got $1 million in cash
Absolutely.
in one calendar year.
Absolutely. And I told
Right.
Kurt that yesterday.
Okay, well, I mean, if we needed to see him face to face and tell him
I
again.
just think it would be good because I want this contract done right away. I want to get it done, not my hair. I don't want to wait. So they can't say, hey, you didn't tell us until December the 1st, you know?
Fair
We just
enough.
want to
Now.
get everybody involved to know, and we also want the council to understand.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they can come and the mayor can come and everybody can come and sit and talk about it. If, you know, at one of our meetings here, let's do it here. I mean, yeah, it needs to be done here in our meeting. Okay?
Yes, they're asking us for money that's not theirs. And we've already given them $1 million in assets in this calendar year to build them fire stations that we will
Right.
pay on for the next 10 years and then give to them. So they're getting $4 million, when it's all said and done, in assets.
Yeah, no, well, yeah, it's gonna be more than that. It's gonna be about 7 million.
So, yeah,
I mean,
it is.
6.5,
Very much so.
6.5 on the bond, and then another million cash from us, 7.5 million, that they will get once those stations are paid for.
And we assume all the risk in the short term.
The headaches.
It's a pretty
Yeah.
sweet deal.
I'm not gonna complain about that, but.
All right, well, you know what we
Okay,
want.
yeah.
Any announcements, Doug?
No,
got me
none,
fired up.
none that I know of. We got some new rules that's coming out from the legislature that we're gonna have to follow. Internal controls, you know, at least 2 people's gotta see and sign the checks, so Debbie gets the invoices, but we have to put all this in writing. Debbie gets the invoices, or gets the invoices. She, pulls it out, does a check, brings it into me. I sign the check and look at the invoice, and I give it back to her, and she mails it. So, but we have to do that. Everybody has to have at least, I mean, you have to have 2 people that reviews it, okay? It was funny because some of those trustees, there was only 1 trustee in the office, so they were, well, maybe a board member would do this, or, I don't know, we don't have that problem. But there's some internal controls that's coming that you guys will have to sign off on. Okay, but I'll get that. But the fire contract's important to me. Let's get this thing done. Okay?
Right.
And they gotta be looking at this new legislation that's gonna refund a greater amount of COIT money back.
The COIT, but that's more for roads.
It's roads and rainy day funds.
Okay, and I know it was a hot item down at the convention, wasn't it? So that is a hot item. Well, wait a minute.
And if we
Township
get
should be
that,
getting money.
it can go towards trails in the parks. We can use, there's no reason to hand that over for operating budgets in their rainy day fund. It can be in ours, or we can put it towards our Parks Department or another fire initiative.
Well, Mayor, or Brian will be at our next meeting, so we can talk about that too. All righty? But no other information at this time.
Motion to adjourn.
You got any comments?
Oh, any board comments? I'm sorry.
No, I don't.
I just want to thank everyone who was here for coming. I know we're giving you money, but you work very hard to earn it with the services that are provided to the whole community, and we always appreciate the efforts that you do, and we're glad to be able to participate by helping fund the projects.
Thank you all, and
Yeah.
thank you for enlightening us on the BRT. I think the more information we have, the less
It was very interesting.
less of a shock it all is. Thank you, everybody. Paul, do you have anything?
No, I don't. I echo your sentiments.
I make a motion that we adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, we stand adjourned at 7:14.